We are here with the talented youngster Ernest Yek, and here he's up against the experienced Indonesian FIDE master Arif Rahman Saragih. Ernest loves his English opening, c4, e5, knight c3. Arif goes for the move knight c6, and now g3, fianchetto with this bishop. It's very standard. d6, very interesting. Bishop g2, bishop e6. Arif is hitting that pawn on c4, but Ernest doesn't mind defending it with the move d3. It's anyway a move he wanted to make, and Arif fianchettos his other bishop, playing g6. And now Ernest goes for the Botvinnik structure, bishop g7 and knight g2. So this type of structure gives white a huge clamp on the d5 square and light squares in general, but it does weaken some dark squares. Arif goes a very aggressive plan. He wants queen d7, trying for bishop h3, which Ernest stops with knight d5 because c7 would hang. So Arif renews the threat with knight c7. He wants to take on d5 and go for bishop h3. Ernest castles, and Arif is consistent. He takes on d5 with the knight. Ernest's reply is false. He must take the c-pawn, and now bishop h3. So Arif's plan is very straightforward. He wants to push the h-pawn all the way to h4, open up the h-file, and play queen h3, and that would be decisive. So king h1, very interesting. And after h5, Ernest's idea is to force the trade of these bishops, or to force it to move away. He plays knight g1. Arif takes on g2, the only move, and Ernest takes back. And now Arif pushes the pawn to h4. Now, Arif doesn't really have a threat because the h3 square is controlled, so Ernest can simply continue with development. He plays bishop e3. Arif renews the threat of h takes g3. Now he wants to claim the move knight g4 after f takes g3. So Ernest must stop this. He plays h3, taking full control over the g4 square. Arif opens the h-file, but Ernest doesn't mind. He simply takes back with the f-pawn. The pawn on h3 is very well defended. Now Arif tries to create another weakness with c6, but this is very risky. I mean, Ernest could have taken on c6 and played queen a4, but instead he played queen b3. So Arif takes on d5, and now Ernest takes back with the e-pawn. Now, these two pawns on d5 and d3 could be a bit weak, but for now it's not that easy for black to attack them. Arif castles, and now Ernest plays knight to e2. There is no longer any pressure on the pawn on h3, so now Ernest must improve this knight. b5. So Arif is thinking of playing a move like queen b7, but Ernest overprotects the pawn on d5 in anticipation. b5 is also hanging, so Arif must defend the pawn. And now Ernest plays knight to e4, giving Arif a choice. What's he going to do? Now the best move is knight h7, trying to play the move f5, kick the knight away. Knight e8 has a similar idea, but it has a drawback of weakening that g5 square, meaning that f5 will not be so attractive. Rook c1, taking control of the c-file, and a5. The Ernest seems like he spotted something, but maybe not. Now he's dropped his queen back to c2. He's trying to bring his queen into c6, f5, and knight g5. So Ernest is trying to occupy that e6 square on a good day. Knight to f6. Arif doesn't care. He's hitting the pawn on d5. So Ernest must do something about this. He plays queen to c6. Now Arif could actually play the move queen b7, and the point is that after queen takes d6, knight takes d5 is very strong. But instead, he doesn't see it. He plays rook c8. Ernest takes on d7, and Arif takes back with the knight. And now Ernest has got what he wants. He plays rook c6. The rook is on a fantastic outpost. Arif takes, Ernest takes back, and knight c5. So Arif is trying to isolate this pawn on c6, but this is not going to happen. Ernest takes on c5 and plays rook c1, hitting that pawn. Or is he going to play rook c1? It seems like he's hesitating a little bit. Where else is he going to put the rook? Well, he does put it on c1. There wasn't much of a choice. And now black is under pressure. How can he defend that pawn on c5? It's not at all easy to do so. So Arif plays bishop h6, but now Ernest defends that knight and takes back. Now the pawn on c5 is still a problem for Arif. So he tries to move c4, but now Ernest simply takes the pawn. D takes c4. And now Arif has a choice. His idea is to play b4 perhaps, but then after rook d1, rook c8, rook d6, the rook is so strong, it's protecting the pawn and attacking that pawn on g6. Black's pieces are completely tied up, so he tries b takes c4, but c7 is accurate. Now if you take on b2, the pawn cannot be stopped, so he must play rook c8, and Ernest takes back, king f7, and now a very instructive move by Ernest. Rook c6, this is total domination. e4 is the only try, but Ernest plays king to f2. King e8 is trying to get closer to those pawns on the queen side, but it really isn't going to help. In fact, he can simply bring his king, and is he going to do so? Yes, he does. He plays king to e3. Now, he's waiting for Arif to bring his king closer to the queen side, and only then is he going to take that pawn on g6, and now the black king is very far away. So Ernest plays rook a6. Wow, he's hitting that pawn on a5, which cannot be defended. King d7, total desperation. Now, Ernest can simply pick up that pawn on a5, and he does so. King e6, protecting the pawn on f5, but now king f4 is very strong, just picking up these pawns. No, he plays g4, very strange. Now, black can take on g4, in fact, he must take on g4. King takes e4, and now I guess he can play a move like rook c2. Now, he plays rook c4 check, king to e3, and now rook c2. So black at least is getting a little bit of chances. Maybe he has some outside chances to hold draw. King f4 though is very powerful. Rook takes b2. And now he can take on g4. Perhaps that's even better. And rook g2, there's king h5. But no, he gives a check on a6. But this forces black's king back to f7, I believe. He can't allow the white king to get in front of the pawn. King takes g4. And now, perhaps there are going to be some annoying checks. Well, there is rook g2 check. Now, I guess rook f2 check is going to follow. Yes, it does. Now, the king, it's not so clear where it's going to go. It goes king e3. Well, perhaps black can try rook f5, but then g6. So he plays rook c2 while he's trying to cut off the king along the c file. But this is not going to be good for long. At some point, white will be able to uncut his king. King d4, rook c1. And now I guess he can just push the a pawn. Yes, he does. a4. Now black is struggling. Rook c2. He can push the a pawn again. Perhaps that's the way. Yes, he does that. Black has nothing to do. Rook c7. And now simply king to d5. Rook is coming to c6 to uncut the king. Rook c1, rook c6, rook g1. And now, not moving the king because rook takes g5, but g6, securing the pawn in check. And now it's time to bring the king to support the pawns. Just play king c5, Ernest. Yes, he does. King d7. And now just move the rook away. Don't allow any sort of nasty tactics with the hanging rook. Rook c1 check. And you can just bring the king to b6, which he does. Yes, very confident. Rook b7 check, king a6. Now, the white king is ready to support this pawn, and there's also a threat of a move like rook b6. Well, king e7, so this allows rook b6. So the point is now, Ernest wants to play king b7 and push the a pawn to glory. So Arif's only move is rook a1 to stop the advance of this pawn. But this is not going to help for long. Rook b7 check. Now the king must move, well, it moves to d6. But now the g7 pawn could be very dangerous. Well, Ernest plays king b6, rook b1 check, king a7. It's very instructive, very slow, but very instructive. It can really take his time in such a position. Rook a1. Now we should push the pawn to a6. Yes, slowly but surely it's going to win this game. King c6 trying to stop the white king from coming out. But now it's moving even further from the g-pawn, which is something that Ernest can use actually as a distraction. And he does. He plays g7. Now g8 queen is a big threat. So the only move is of course rook g1, trying to stop the pawn. But now the a pawn can go straight through. Ernest plays king b8, and Arif must resign as the a pawn is going to queen. A great game by Ernest, downing a strong FIDE master in great style. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please remember to like and subscribe, and also check this video out, you won't regret it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.